with the latest on the Eagles. As John, they prepare. They officially rule out Zach Ertz, Leotis McKelvin today. No real surprise there. But as we know, moving forward here, this is a Eagles team that, I guess we're going to learn a lot about this week against this Steelers team. We've talked a lot about how good, and you've referenced how good, maybe the best offense in the league. But what do we know about the Steelers' defense? What level of defense are the Eagles going to be seeing as an upgrade to the Bears and the Browns?
Well, I think it's better than it has been in the past few years. Obviously, it's not the strength in Pittsburgh. The big issue in the past couple of years has been the cornerback position. It's had really, really poor play from players like Cortez Allen. And they've upgraded a little bit there. Part of the reason, though, is because it's not the old school Steelers defense that you think of. It's not Dick LeBeau. It's not 3-4 heavy pressure from the edges. It's more of a zone-based concept, still using the 3-4. And I think the reason they went that direction is sort of protect their cornerbacks. William Gay and Ross Cockrell are starting, and Cockrell's actually playing pretty well. They also drafted Arnie Burns in the first round, and that kind of tells you how bad they were at the position, because that was kind of a reach when they took him, I believe, at 25. They also brought in Justin Gilbert, who was a huge bust in Cleveland. So it kind of shows you the desperation they had at that position. But early on, it's been better, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, as I said, they're playing more zone coverage, and it's going to be interesting because I don't think Carson Wentz has seen the zone coverage, the variety of looks he's going to see this week that Pittsburgh's going to throw at him. So it's another big test for a rookie quarterback who's got to go through it and see if he can sort of read and diagnose and make sure he doesn't make those game-changing mistakes.
Yeah, one of the things, the Eagles, they've run the ball a lot, but not great, 3.5 yards a carry. The Steelers, second best in the league against the run. They've only given up 101 yards, John. But is that something Doug Peterson still wants to do? Is no matter what, we're still going to try to run the ball at you, whether we do it effectively or not?
Yeah, I think he does. And it's hampered a little bit by the fact that Ryan Matthews is still not 100%. He's still dealing with a left ankle problem, even though he's not on the injury report. It's always taped heavily, and obviously they limited his touches last week on Monday, actually, as Doug admitted, because of that issue. But they're gonna run the football a decent amount. It's obviously going to be by committee. Darren Sproles is going to probably get most of the touches again. I'm not sure how long you can do that, though, because we've seen in the past, as effective as Darren can be in short doses, generally the more you give him the ball, the quicker he wears down, and then it's going to affect you on the back end. So if Ryan Matthews continues to be limited, then you got to get Kenyon Barner up to speed, or you got to get Wendell Smallwood up to speed, and you got to do it quickly.
John, so Doug Peterson officially says that Ertz and McKelvin are out for this week, but what did he say about the bye week factoring into his decision?
Well, it is, pretty key. I don't think it had much to do with Ertz, because I think that was always the plan, that he was not going to play in this game. That was a more serious injury as far as the displaced rib. For McKelvin, I think it played into it, and the fact that, do you push him to get on the field against a very good receiving corps, or risk sort of re-injuring a hamstring, which is, Leotis calls it a fast guy injury, and we know how those things can linger, or do you let him have a whole extra week of rest and make sure he's completely right? I think the Eagles erred on the side of caution, and I think they made the right decision, because when you have that bye week looming, I think it's really, really iffy to push somebody back on the field when it's sort of 50-50, especially with an injury that can linger.
and no Ertz, but we saw a lot of Trey Burton against the Bears. What was Doug Peterson's comments or analysis of Trey Burton, and how much do they think he'll play a role this week?
Yeah, he'll play a big role again, as he did against the Bears, and he's really well-liked by this offensive coaching staff, and rightfully so. Kind of saw the things he was capable of doing. Again, as I've stated before, you never say losing a player the caliber of Zach Ertz is a good thing, but in a weird way, it's enabled you to get him involved with the game plan, and you kind of see he can do it now. And I think that'll help the Eagles down the line when Zach is back, because they'll have some interesting packages they can throw out there as far as 3 tight ends go.
John McMullen's with us here. The Eagles getting ready for the Steelers, the Friday look. Doug Peterson speaking today. You mentioned Burton, Pete, and Carson Wentz. A lot of his throws have been those short intermediate things. He has not gone a lot down the field. Everything has kind of been an extension of the run game, which you would think that means Burton would be a lot involved. But is that something that the Steelers do a good job of taking away?
Yeah, they do, because as I mentioned, they play a lot of zones, so everything's going to be in front of them. So their whole mentality is rally up and tackle. So if you're going to dink and dunk in front of them, if they have a good tackling day, you're probably sort of feeding into what they want to do. But I think Carson not taking shots down the field has been a little bit overblown. He had the big touchdown to Nelson Aguilar, we know, against Cleveland down the field. There were a couple shots. He had another one that Nelson should have came up with down the field against Chicago. Obviously, the Matthews drop touchdown was more of an intermediate throw. And he's been very effective when he has thrown the ball in those intermediate zones. But considering his reputation and the fact that he's got that sort of gunslinger mentality, it is a bit of a surprise they haven't gone deep a little bit more, and I think that is a little bit of the coaching staff trying to protect a rookie from maybe making a bad decision, and all of a sudden, if you make a bad decision and it's an interception, you might lose confidence. So I think Doug, as a play caller, has handled this pretty well through 2 weeks.
Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Mike, Pete, John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN. He was asked through the first 2 games. I thought this was an interesting question. Who has surprised Doug Peterson the most through these first 2 games?
Well, I forget what Doug said. I can tell you who surprised me, and that's the fact that Carson Wentz is how many times can you say it? We've seen rookie quarterbacks around this league have some success, and we just saw it again last night. But then you look at the numbers, and they're not that impressive. For Brissett last night, Dak Prescott has been sort of a check down Charlie, and Carson is the one who is. And I always say it's not about the statistics, guys. It really isn't. It's about just watching the game and seeing his command, seeing his poise, seeing his presence in the pocket. If he played the same way and the Eagles were 1-1, I would still be saying the same things. If he threw 4 touchdowns, if Matthews caught the football, if Aguilar caught the football and he had more touchdowns, I'd still be saying the same thing. It doesn't have anything to do with the numbers. It has to do with the presence. And any time, and now that I'm saying this, I believe that's what Doug said, it's anytime you see a rookie quarterback who plays at that level so early, and you've been around the NFL for a long time like Doug has, it's surprising.
Yeah, John, that was his praise. Carson Wentz first. He also mentioned the tight ends a little bit and then spoke about DGB. But to the tight ends, he did mention Brent Selleck, and I saw him say that he's playing special teams. Has Brent Selleck always played special teams? I don't remember that.
Well, he plays on generally a blocker. There's a lot of guys who play on 1 or 2 units as far as kick return, the block, and that's where Brent usually is. But he's not covering kicks or anything of that nature. Sometimes when you have a lot of injuries. You do have to throw guys out there that you don't want to on a particular situation, and that's where the depth of your team comes in, and special teams are so important. And that's one thing where the Eagles have been really good at, and you can give Chip Kelly a lot of credit for that because he paid a lot of attention to special teams, and I think it's carried over because this staff was smart enough to keep Dave Zip, and it's shaping up like the Eagles are going to have one of the best groups in the NFL again.
Yeah, John, another thing that you mentioned, the guy that stands out for you on the offense, and he mentioned obviously Wentz too, but one thing you talk about Jordan Matthews, and he's been playing outside a lot more compared to being a slot guy more so this year, and you wonder if that has led to – he's had the drops, but he's had better production this year too.
Yeah, and I talked about that with Jordan quite a bit before the season started, and I thought that might improve his focus because, when you're in the same position every single time, you tend to it becomes almost muscle memory, and you tend to not think about your particular job on a particular play, and when you have all these formations that the Eagles have been running this year, you're inside, you're outside, you're at the X, you're at the Z at times, which Jordan has done. All of a sudden, it keeps your head into the game a little bit more. Unfortunately, the drops are still there, so I can't explain it. I really can't, because I look at Jordan Matthews and I look at a receiver who makes some spectacular catches at times. Generally, when you have bad hands, you have bad hands. And a guy's not going to make really, really impressive catches. So I've never thought that he had bad hands, but the drops aren't going away. And that just speaks to consistency, and maybe that's the difference from being a good player and a great player. But until Jordan fixes that problem, he's not going to get over that hurdle to great player. That's certainly something that's true.
Let me ask you about another receiver then, John. How is DGB coming along? Do you think we'll see more of him this week?
Yeah, and Doug kind of said that, and as I said, that's the Eagles' plan. You're going to see a little bit more of him each week because I think they want to get him up to speed as quickly as possible and let him become this team's second receiver over Nelson Aguilar. They won't go out and say that, but Doug did. This is the farthest he's gone today, is he said he'd like to get him on the field a little bit more each week. And remember, it's been tough for him because he had a 2-week period there where he had 3 quarterbacks. He had the trade, so he's dealing with Marcus Mariota, then he was dealing with Sam Bradford, and now he's dealing with Carson Wentz. So that's a lot for one player. And let's be honest, he hasn't been known as a guy with a tremendous work ethic. That's one of the knocks Tennessee had about him, and that's why they traded him. But I can say from when he's been here, he's been a model citizen. He seems to be doing everything the Eagles want, and they're pretty high on him. And I think they want to get him on the field more each and every week. But guys, we always talk about on defense, nickel cornerbacks are basically starters now. On the offensive side of the ball, because the Eagles have been using so much 11 personnel, the 3 wide receivers, they're basically starters. So when he gets up to speed, I think you're going to see Matthews, DGB, and Aguilar all get significant snaps on the offensive side of the ball.
John, let's focus on your 5 on the Steelers and take a look at some of the things that should concern Eagles fans this week. And, this is a Steelers team that's a veteran team. They're a Super Bowl contending team. And, they're in a very offensive minded team as well. And this is a team that has Antonio Brown, maybe the best receiver in football. How does Jim Schwartz, what's the chess match there for Jim Schwartz? Is that obviously he's got that worry, but he's also got Jesse James, the tight end, who's been involved, but the running back, D'Angelo Williams. Who's the guy that concerns the Eagles with who they have personnel-wise the most?
Well, it's definitely Antonio. And Jim has a tough time admitting that stuff. He did say we know what number he wears. We'll realize where he lines up on every single play. But when you think about Leotis McKelvin being out again, and maybe your best corner on this team right now is Ron Brooks because Nolan Carroll hasn't played well. Jalen Mills is a rookie. It's not like you have Josh Norman. You know, the big story in Washington is Josh Norman shadowing Des Bryant this week, or was he shadowing Antonio Brown? He didn't. You don't have to worry about it with the Eagles because they don't have anybody who can shadow Antonio Brown. So no matter what Jim Schwartz says, it's a concern, especially with that cornerback group, which is probably, certainly, without Leotis, the thinnest group on the team.
Also, the Eagles' running game pretty good the last 2 weeks. As we mentioned, Pittsburgh's only given up 101. They got to find a way to run in this game. Do you think Matthews or Sproles is the guy the Eagles lean on more this week?
Well, just judging by seeing Ryan in practice and the ankle the same as I saw last week, I think Doug's going to handle it the same way he did against Chicago, and that means Darren's going to get more touches than Ryan because he's not 100%. And I don't know if it's going to be effective this week because you mentioned how good the Steelers are versus the run. Their two best defensive players right now are probably their inside linebackers with Timmons and Shazier. So it's not a great matchup. And that's generally what the Steelers do very, very well. And as Frank Reich said yesterday, the Eagles have been okay running the football. It's been acceptable, I think is the term he used. But he wants to get better. I don't necessarily think this is the week that it's going to get better, though.
John, I know one of the things in year 5 on the Steelers you talked is about how they've played against rookie quarterbacks. What do you see Pittsburgh D coordinator Keith Bettler throwing at Wentz? A lot of blitzes, which maybe not his style, and Wentz has been pretty good against the blitz.
No, I don't. That's what I was saying. I think it's going to be the exact opposite. I think you're going to see a lot of exotic zone coverages that he hasn't seen to this point, and they're going to try to bait him. And sometimes you'll look at his zone and think you have an open window, and all of a sudden the linebacker drops in underneath, or the cornerback breaks off his man, and all of a sudden appears. And I think that's what Pittsburgh is about now. I think that's what they're going to try to do. And as I said, it's going to be an interesting test for Carson Wentz because I do think most teams look at rookie quarterbacks and say, we're going to pin our ears back, we're going to blitz, and we're going to go after them. I think Pittsburgh's going to throw them a curveball and go the exact opposite and just go four-man rush for the majority of the game.
All right, we got John McMullen's pick at 97.3 ESPN.com. We'll get that in just a second here. John, I do want to get your take from last night. John covers the league for today's pigskin.com. He covers the NFL nationally, and what the Patriots were able to do last night, shutting out a pretty good Texas team. Forget the fact they shut him out. They moved the ball at ease on a pretty good defense there.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you think about the two short fields, they have the two kickoff return fumbles. I'm not as concerned with the Houston defense. I think it's good. And they had a couple discipline problems on the one touchdown run by Brissett, and then late when they kind of gave up anyway on LeGarrette Blount. But as a whole, I think that side of the ball is fine, and it'll get even better. J.J. Watt is not even close to 100%, probably shouldn't even be playing yet, but that's just his mentality after the back surgery, and he wants to be out there. If he gets healthy, it'll get even better. But offensively, let's face it, it didn't matter if Brady, any name, Brady, Garoppolo, Brissett, they didn't score a point, so they weren't beating any quarterback last night.
No, they weren't.
And Brock Osweiler looked lost against basically what he was doing was cover two, which you don't see a lot in today's NFL. You see it in sort of 10, 20% of the time, but days where people paid it 80, 90% of the time like New England did are long gone, and Osweiler didn't know what the heck to do with it. And Jamie Collins specifically was playing the role of sort of Derek Brooks or Brian Urlacher, making those big drops in the middle of the field, and he just couldn't figure it out. So if I'm Houston, I'm really, really concerned with my $72 million quarterback, and he couldn't adjust to what is really a simple defense.
All right, I would agree with that, too. John McMullen, 97.3 ESPN.com. His pick has been posted. He will reveal that now here on the Sports Bash. Which way are you leaning, Eagles and the Steelers?
Well, I think it's going to be closer than a lot of people expect. Pittsburgh hasn't won in Philadelphia for 51 years, but that's a little overblown. Just don't play here that often. This is just a really, really tough matchup for the Eagles. And then you have the human nature, the fact that they're 2-0. Maybe they're reading some of the press clippings and some of the accolades. And I think Pittsburgh is a legitimate Super Bowl contender, and I have the Steelers winning this game 27-20.
27-20 for the Steelers, John McMullen. Yeah, 3.5-point line in this game. Kind of interesting there because, it seems that Pittsburgh would be a favorite, on the road and versus a lot of teams to only be 3.5 against Philadelphia, although 2-0 did not enter the league with the season with a lot of expectations. Thought that was an interesting line for the game. John has the Eagles losing this week 27-20. All right, John, enjoy the game this weekend.
Hey,